What's good, Illini Nation? It's your man in the middle, Deon Thomas, back for another episode of Champaign on Ice. As you know, I always try to bring you the best of the best of the best, and today is no exception. This guy right here, first of all, was my big brother when I stepped on campus my first year. Showed me around, showed me the ropes. Some of those stories, unfortunately, we cannot share. But they would have been a lot of fun. I'm sure you would have enjoyed them. But we got the starting point guard for the best Illini team, in my opinion, ever, the Flyin Illini team. He was the 1989 Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten, and not to mention the floor general for that, as aforementioned, Fighting Illini team, drafted into the NBA in 1990 by the San Antonio Spurs. And then he and I, after his American leg of his career was over, bumped into each other in Spain.
Yep.
So take that one, for people that say we don't get around. We get around. So it's my man, my big brother, Stephen Bardo. What's up, baby?
What's up, Deon? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I can't be doing nothing but better. If I was doing any better, I'd be an angel.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's good to be on with you.
Oh, no doubt, Steve. I've followed you, as you know, from the time I stepped on that campus as a freshman. And, you've been my mentor in this broadcasting side of this business. So, but this ain't about me. This about you, and this is why I want to make sure we can celebrate on this, our long lineage of Illini basketball players. I had Kendall on, of course, started off with Coach Underwood and IO, but now we've led to the man that kept things going and orchestrated out there on the court. Let's start off. How did you get into basketball?
Deon, basketball is my family business. My dad played college basketball at Southern Illinois University in the late 50s, early 60s. My brother played college basketball at Indiana University. He was on the national championship team early in the year, and things didn't work out between he and Bobby Knight, so he had to leave. But he played with Indiana. He played with the Citadel University. My sister played junior college basketball. And so, I'm the baby, the recipient of all of that basketball experience and knowledge. I had people who were like my uncles that played with my father, Dr. Seymour Bryson, Paul Henry. I just had basketball was our family business. And I was one of the youngest in the large family, that our collective family. And I just took to the sport and loved it from day one.
Wow. I mean, you can't help but to love it with a lineage like that. So you say, and I knew Pops played at Southern. How did they let you get away up to Champaign?
Well, Deon, at that time, SIU was pretty good. I mean, they weren't having the runs that they had under Bruce Weber, but they were having some success. And I grew up on SIU's campus. My dad went right into higher education, professor in educational psychology, and he's worked his way up into administration. So I grew up on SIU's campus. And when it was time to make that decision, I think the people at SIU knew, and my parents knew, that I could play on a higher level. No knock to SIU, but when the state university comes calling, and the lure of playing in the Big Ten at that juncture, because it was the best conference in the country, like it is now, right? It's recycled back to be the best conference in the country. And if you call yourself a competitor and you think you want to play against the best, there's no knock on SIU. But if Illinois, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, all these Big Ten schools are coming at me, I think that's where I needed to be. And, it came down to Illinois and Northwestern, because I love Northwestern's Medill journalism school, but I made the right decision in choosing Illinois.
I would agree with you on that one, big fella. But no, I agree with you 100%. I went to sort of that same kind of thing, come to state school, everybody else recruited me. A lot of people talk about the other members that was on that Flyin Illini team, but you were one of the top guards in the state. And to come in as at that time, say 6'4", eventually 6'5" point guard, that was unusual at that time. Can you talk a little bit about, what you brought to the game that was different than what the smaller guards before you at Illinois had done.
You know what? You dropped out there, Deon. I didn't quite hear everything. Can you repeat that for me, please?
Sure. I was just talking about you being a big guard. And that was something that wasn't really typical at that time.
Right.
Going in at 6'4", 6'5" as a point guard, what type of adjustments you had to make in your game in order to make that fit and make it work on that level.
You know what, Deon, I was very fortunate again, because you're going to hear me talk a lot. You're going to hear me refer back to my father a lot. I've been very blessed because I had a father that went through the process. So he anticipated I would be 6'5", 6'6", but he always kept the ball in my hands. He always put me at the point guard position in junior sports, in elementary school, in junior high, in high school. He emphasized to the coaching staff, this guy's a leader. He's a point guard. I don't care how tall he gets. I don't care where you want to put him. His best position is point guard. He was able to kind of influence the coaches that were coaching me throughout my time to give me a shot at the point guard position. And every time I did well. And so the fact that I was groomed, so to speak, because my brother Craig was an outstanding shooting guard. He could jump. He was very athletic, and he could shoot it from the parking lot. I couldn't shoot the ball as well as he could, but I had different skill sets. So my dad, being a man that had been through the process, studies the game, understand what's going on, he always kept the ball in my hands. And so even though I was the tallest player on my high school team, I still ran the point guard position, because my dad knew that if you're going to play at the college level, he wasn't even thinking about professionally. He just was thinking about college. He wanted to get my college education paid for. Like my brother and sister got their college education paid for, because the money that my mom and dad invested for us in college, that got them to, quickly towards their retirement, because they didn't have to invest in college education. So they knew what they were doing. And
Right.
That's why he put the ball in my hands, because he could see I had leadership skills. He thought I was going to be kind of tall. I would be an anomaly, but my competitiveness and my leadership skills would be best suited at the point guard position. And that's why I was able to really excel at that position.
Well, that's one of the things. I don't think people really understand the importance of having mentors, which your father was from a basketball standpoint. He pointed you, he had vision to point you in the right direction. I can tell you this, as a 6'7", 6'7", 6'8", power forward center coming out of high school, man, I wish I'd had somebody to tell me, keep the ball in your hands, keep the ball in your hands, because that just wasn't one of those things. During our time, if you're taller than 6'7", sometimes taller than 6'6", they're plopping your butt right down in the post.
You're right.
It really changed, now. I mean, if I could have gone into Illinois with what you had been given and what you had been taught, that would have been absolutely perfect from my standpoint, but it didn't happen. So I ended up having a really good freshman year, but you guys had an excellent freshman year as well as you carried on. Can you talk a little bit about when you came in as a freshman, that growth throughout those first few years, and then we'll get into, how that 89 team got going.
Well, I'll do you something here. Let me show you something real quick. This guy right here, this is Lou Henson, right? So I always want to pay respect for Lou every time I come on my shows, because he was demanding, Deon. He and I did not get along, but the older I got, the further I got away from him, the more I understood what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
The one thing that Coach Henson does not get credit for, he recruited competitors, guys that would compete. Obviously, they're talented. You got to be talented playing the Big Ten to play at the University of Illinois. But our freshman year, when you think about it, we had Ken Norman, Doug Altenberger, Tony Weisinger, Lowell Hamilton, Glenn Blackwell, and then you had all the freshmen. Kendall, Phil Kuntz was in that class. Jeff Finke, who went on to play football at Illinois, was in that class. Larry Smith, Irvin Small, Nick Anderson, and now I think I said Kendall. But it was an ultra competitive situation. The weight room was competitive. The sprints, the preseason conditioning was competitive. The practices were harder than the games. Mm-hmm. We get to the games and we'd be like frothing at the mouth because Coach Henson understood putting competitors against each other every single day. And that's why we were good, is because we had to compete at everything. We competed to get to the training table first. You remember that, Deon, when we get fed, after practice, whatever, in season, we're trying to beat the football players there. Yep. Everything we did was a competition. And I have to point back to Coach Henson for instilling the competitive environment that fostered all of that success. Because if you don't have guys that want to compete every day, you're only as good as your weakest link. And we really didn't have a weak link. We just had guys that wanted to compete. And so I think that's why we had so much success our freshman year, because we had guys like Ken Norman, Doug Altenberg, and Tony Weisinger on the older side, who had seen a lot of things, who had been through a lot of games, who had been with Coach Henson and understood the competitive nature. And that blend with the older guys in our freshman class, we were ultra competitive. And that's what really spurred the success that we had in our freshman season.
Man, I can tell you this, just to share a story with the listeners. I've told this story multiple times. Like you, and I think the time was just different. Coach and I would butt heads when I was at Illinois. And as you mentioned, after my time in Illinois, when I grew to love Lou Henson, it was because now I was understanding those lessons, those crumbs, those things he was trying to teach us. And you're right, he made everything competitive. I mean, it was running sprints, and everything had to be, you had to be your best. But he told me one time when I went into coaching, I called him, I said, Coach, this is what I'm going to do. And the first thing he said was, hey, make sure your players are tough. Yep. You make sure that they compete. Right. Like, Deon, you can teach them everything else. That's two things that you cannot teach them.
That's right.
So anytime when I was at the junior college level and then as an assistant at UIC, first thing I looked at was, okay, how tough is this kid? How hard does he go? And, I know that was one of those things that Coach Henson constantly pushed. I mean, even remember the drill when you had to dive on the floor for the ball.
Yeah.
I hated that drill, man, because it always seemed like I was hitting heads with somebody on the court. Yeah, that's right. The drill.
No, that's real, man.
So you take all of that competitiveness, all of that fire and everything from your freshman year, sophomore year into your junior year in 1989. How did that coalesce to it? Kind of walk us through. We know how the season went, the one loss, and then we got to the tournament. Tell me how that season for you through your eyes felt.
Well, typically, Deon, at least in my life experience, that breakthroughs happen after adversity. So sophomore year, we're up 10 points with 1:45 left against Villanova in the second round of the NCAA tournament. We had played Villanova in there was a Hawaii tournament early in the year, and we played a dogfight with them. I mean, it came down, I think, to a 1-point game, and I think they got us at the end or something. Fast forward to the NCAA tournament, round 2, we're on our way to Sweet 16 if we hit free throws. We couldn't hit our free throws. Doug West, who ended up playing in the NBA, Gary Massey, who was a tough, undersized forward. They had a very tough, physical team. We fouled out almost all their starters. We couldn't hit our free throws. A walk-on hits a fadeaway 3 at the buzzer to beat us. Now, we sat there in that locker room stunned. They kicked us out of the locker room. The NCAA did, because we could not believe we lost that game. So all the guys came back to campus. Nobody went home that summer. We ran sprints. We got in the weight room, and we got in Impey. We lived in Impey, right? Working on our games, playing one-on-one, all that. And that adversity spurred us to now you come into preseason conditioning. We were already in season shape. So now Dwight Dobb, the strength and conditioning coach, he can do some elite level stuff. This is what most people don't understand. So Dwight Dobb used us as guinea pigs, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He put an NBA regimen on us in the preseason. So we were running sprints around the football field. We had never done that. We had never had trash cans on the corners of the football field. Why are the trash cans there? Because you're going to get sick from running. Yeah. You're going to get sick to your stomach from competing and running sprints on this hot football field. Then you walk up into the weight room. How are we going to lift weights after being sick to our stomach and run and competing in sprints? We figured out how to do it. So then when we're down 19 to Missouri in the border war game, in the bragging rights game, Missouri's number 4 in the country. We're number 5 in the country. We're able to come back and beat them. Mm-hmm. When Georgia Tech has us down double digits, we're able to come back and beat them. When we go to LSU on the road and we put up a school record 127 points at LSU, Dale Brown, the legendary LSU coach, said that's the best ball club I've seen in 30 years. He had seen national championship teams from Kentucky come into LSU. He had never seen anything like the Flyin Illini.
Yeah.
So that adversity in the second round loss, when we could not hit our free throws, was the impetus for an off season of great work that led to a preseason of elite work that led to a Final Four run that, you know, a break here or there could have led to a national championship. And so I always, Deon, I like to share the stories to tell people that there is hope in every situation, that there's some adversity that happens. Usually you can take that adversity and make something very special out of it. And that's what happened with the Flyin Illini. I don't think a lot of people know that, but that's the real story behind our success.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that because I didn't know that. And if I didn't know it, they probably didn't either. But it actually leads me into the next question. And then the next observation is, you're right, that hard work is what pushed you guys to be, and again, in my opinion, the greatest Illinois basketball team ever. And a huge reason that I decided to go to the University of Illinois was watching you guys and watching you fly around. Watch the positionless basketball is what I will call it, because that's what they call it today. Mm-hmm. When your center is 6'7", 6'8", but yet he's able to get out on the floor and be mobile. You know, a lot of people talk about how, you know, this new form of basketball is new. You guys were kind of the catalyst for that new version of basketball, where everyone was kind of interchangeable, you know, because of their sizes, because of their skill sets. But not just that, you guys were the innovators of the long shorts.
Yes. Michael Jordan was the innovator of long shorts. Kendall Gill patterned his game, his mannerisms, his look after Michael Jordan, went and talked to Lou Henson. He told us what he was going to do, and we laughed at it. We're like, yeah, go ahead, man. Lou ain't going for that. Kendall went and talked to Lou. I don't know what he said. We got baggy shorts. Couldn't believe it, because it was something that you just didn't see in college basketball. If you take our freshman and sophomore pictures compared to our junior and senior pictures, we look like we were wearing Speedos our first couple of seasons because those shorts are so high, right? But Kendall got Lou Henson to change his mind. And it was, you know, I'm a spiritual guy, Deon. I never push my spirituality on anybody. But if you look at the way things fell in place while we were there was some divine intervention going on. Just the way things happened, the way that the team was formed, Kenny Battle coming in from Northern Illinois, just things really, really fell into place. The baggy shorts, so it gave us a uniqueness and it matched the uniqueness of our play. I appreciate what you said about us being the originators of positionless basketball. I totally agree with you. And the fact that Lou Henson, Jimmy Collins, Dick Nagy, and Mark Coombs had the foresight to say, you know what? Lowell Hamilton can handle the center position, and he can switch out and contain a point guard out on the floor. Stephen Bardo can play point, but he can fight in the paint against a center for 4 or 5 seconds in an offensive possession, because that's all we needed to do. And the coaching staff had the foresight so there was a lot of things that had to come together that did. And I think that's why still to this day, 30 some odd years later, people have fond memories of the Flyin Illini, because to me, Deon, there was some divine intervention there with all that took place with the shorts, with the style of play, with the way that we played, with the games that we played, with the exposure that we received, with Dick Vitale giving us our own name. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything kind of fell into place.
It did. And I agree with you 100%. The innovative thought process, and I don't think Coach Henson or his staff, with Coach Nagy, Coach Coons, and Coach Collins, get enough credit for what they have done, not just at the University of Illinois, but in college basketball as a whole. They were great, and like I know Coach Collins recruiting 4 Mr. Basketballs in the state of Illinois in 4 consecutive years. That doesn't happen. I mean, that doesn't happen even in other programs, that doesn't happen. So what that staff did was amazing. So you had a great junior year, of course. Unfortunately, didn't get that championship. As I told Kendall in my last conversation, there are 2 things that really bugged me about everything that took place with the investigation. And we're not going to go into all that, but the 2 things was, one, I felt that Coach Collins, Jimmy Collins, would have been the next head coach after Lou Henson. So him not getting that position bugged me, and it still bugs me to this day. The other was me coming in, not being able to play my freshman year with you guys, because I personally feel we're right back in the Final Four at least. And
I agree.
A national championship.
I agree. I totally agree. You were Deon, you were the missing piece. Like Kendall and I talked about that after the Final Four, and we knew you were coming. And so, it's me, you, Kendall, Irvin Small, PJ Bowman, Andy Kaufman, Tim Gears, Brooks Taylor,
Andy Petty.
We had was Rodney Jones on that team?
Rodney Jones, yep.
We had a crew. We had a whip, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you were the missing piece. And so had you been there, we talked about it after the Final Four. Kendall and I, me and PJ Bowman, Dr. Philip Bowman, we've talked about it for years. Ryan Baker, CBS 2 Sports, news anchor, morning news anchor for CBS, who was a basketball manager at Illinois with us, was my college roommate. We talk about it all the time. You were the missing piece to the second Final Four run. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the NCAA did what they did and which the manner they did, I'm going to say it for you. It was garbage. It was malicious. Yeah. They didn't find a thing, but they damaged everybody. Everybody was tainted from that situation. Even Bruce Pearl was tainted from that situation. So the fact that it was mishandled by the NCAA and that it was a bombshell and affected the program for a long time, affected you, even though you became a leading scorer in program history. So that's an unbelievable character for you to be able to stay there, overcome the BS, and still be the most proficient player in Illinois history. Think about that for a second. See, Deon, so this is my time to get you. See, you don't do this, and I hope you keep this in this podcast, because the people that are watching, they know you, but they don't really know what you overcame, right? Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, Deon Thomas was the missing piece for us going to 2 straight Final Fours, possibly a national championship. He was the missing piece. He's always will be linked to Coach Collins not getting that opportunity at Illinois. That's BS, right? That is BS. And so the fact that you were able to stay in that environment, to overcome that stigma, you and Coach Collins lock hand in hand and help the Illinois program moving forward, and you have a Hall of Fame career, says all you need to know about Deon Thomas. All right, I'm done.
Well, I appreciate that, big fella.
I really say that, Deon, because nobody says it like that. Yeah. Nobody gives you credit for overcoming what you had to overcome. If you were to take people day by day what you went through your freshman year, people would be shocked
Oh, that's true.
They would be shocked, right? And so
Oh,
I want people to understand that point of your character and how you overcame, and that you are really Mr. Illinois, because there's not been a player in Illinois history that went through what you went through and still became the most productive player in Illinois history. That in and of itself, that needs to be recognized. So I wanted to take that time. Sorry to commandeer the podcast, but I had to get that out because people need to know that.
No, I appreciate you, big fella, and I definitely appreciate the sentiment. And Illinois, like many of us, Illinois changed my life. I
Mine
mean,
too.
I'm not where I am if it wasn't for Jimmy Collins, Lou Henson, and the University of Illinois. I mean,
Same here.
yeah,
Same here.
And where I grew up, I don't even know if I'm still walking around this day. And that's just, and that's just the real.
Yes, it is.
So no, I appreciate that. And as you mentioned, my character, that's my grandmother. That's my grandmother and my mom. That's how I was raised. Once I committed to Illinois, there was no going anywhere else, even though the NCAA was like, yeah, you can transfer and go play somewhere else. I'm like, okay, you don't know me. I think you guys believe some of the stereotypes that you hear, but that's not who I am, and that's not what I do. So I had no choice but to stay there because that's just who I am. So I appreciate that, big fella. But back to you, because you are who we are here to celebrate. But thank you. So after that 89 team, 1990 is a very good year. You get drafted into the NBA for San Antonio. Give us a little bit about your professional career. I mean, you went from the NBA, CBA, and then, of course, to Europe. Tell us a little bit about that journey for you.
Well, I like to share the journey, Deon, because it was one of I was a basketball gypsy.
Mm-hmm.
I was cut, waived, or released 16 times from the NBA. If you consider summer league, veteran camp, mini camp, I was in a lot of different NBA situations where they didn't want to utilize my services. Now, I got coffee breaks in the NBA. I spent half seasons with San Antonio, Detroit Pistons, and Dallas Mavericks. So I did get my coffee breaks in. I am a legitimate former NBA player, but I did not play as long as I would prefer. But what I like to tell young people is that I was a pretty good math person, and I understood that 16 teams told me no, but there was 14 more opportunities at the NBA level. But there was also a ton of opportunities outside the United States.
Yes.
And once I broadened my horizons and started to look around and wasn't NBA or bust, I got a chance to play in Spain against you, which was an unbelievable growth experience. The ball is great. The basketball in that league was great. But the growth experience of you and Darren Snulligan coming to my house in Alea, Spain, when my parents were there celebrating my birthday, and we're drinking champagne, and or playing in Italy. I loved Italy. Played in Fabriano, right in the middle of the country, and played there a little bit more than a half a season. To playing in Japan, playing in France. I played in France a little bit in Paris. I've had unbelievable basketball. It's been so good to me, and it's taken me all over the world. That I had a very what some would consider a very rocky 10-year professional basketball career, but for me, again, it was supposed to happen that way. And I finished my last 4 seasons in Japan. I won a championship my last game. So my last professional game, I walked off as a champion, which is something I always wanted to do. It was a storybook ending to a 10-year professional career, and I was able to transition that into what I do today.
So all of this, and this is one of the things I hope there are young people listening to this as well, because today a lot of the young people either quit too soon, don't really push themselves, or they only think it's the NBA or bust. Like you, my story took me to Europe. I went over there. I fell in love with it, never came back. And I have people to this day say, well, why didn't you come back? Or do you feel that you missed something? not staying in the NBA? That's always the question. And you just touched on this. I didn't miss anything. I had some amazing life experiences.
That's right.
Not to mention meeting my wife and her family and all of the friends that I still have to this day from Europe. If you had to look at your adversity, and you touched on it a little bit, of ups and downs and travels and being a gypsy, how has that helped you, not just then, but moving forward as you transitioned into the second part of, and like you, I also got to say this too, I walked off the court at Champaign as well. Now, by the end of my time, I was older than my coach. And
that's what it's supposed to be, Deon. You got to
play. Oh, man.
Fall off, bro. If they're going to pay you, right?
Exactly. And that's what happened.
You did the right thing.
And I was like, okay, it's time to hang these up now. I'm really done. How have those ups and downs, adversities, and have helped you moving forward into what you're doing today? And then we'll talk a little bit about that, because you're blowing it up on the broadcasting side, bro. And I love it. I love watching you, love hearing you. I kind of pattern some of the things I do off of what you do. And as you know, when I first got into it, I was always calling you anyway, telling me, hey, what do you think about this? What about that? Tell a little bit how those helped and how it's helped progress you into where you are today.
Well, Deon, I think that the creator, I call God the creator. So the creator put me in those situations to have a testament to young people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when we move through life, we think it's all about us. But we don't understand that when you're given the platform to play at the University of Illinois, when you're given the platform to be drafted in the NBA, to play a little bit in the NBA, to play in the CBA, to play in these different countries, people are watching you. They're paying attention to what you do. How do you treat people? How do you work with your teammates? Are you cool with your coach? Are you successful in your job, in this particular job? So, for example, you're in Israel, and if somebody from a corporate Forbes 500 company were looking at business development and teamwork and leadership and those things, corporate CEOs die to have the experience that a Deon Thomas, a Kendall Gill, and a Stephen Bardo have. They would die for that experience. Because we know people skills better than 99% of the people in the world. Mm-hmm. Because we are making split-second decisions with 4 other people on the court. There might be 15,000 people in the stands. There may be 2 million people watching on national television. Every move you make, every decision you make is scrutinized to the nth degree. Yep. Where people are making money on talk radio and talk television shows talking about your performance.
True.
And yet you were able to overcome all the NCAA stuff, the ineligibility in your freshman year. You go on to be the school's leading scorer. You're supposed to be in the NBA, but the NBA doesn't give you the love that you should have gotten. So you were smart. You went overseas where you were wanted, and you thrived. You thrive, Deon. And so what happens is that the sport of basketball, the powers that be over the sport don't like to tell basketball players how skilled they are. Yep. They don't want you to take the basketball terminology and apply it to business. Because if you did, you'd be an expert. Yep. Right? So all of those times I got cut, waived and released from the NBA, those times I had to drag my family overseas and, I got cut or something didn't work out, I'd have to drag them back. It cost me my relationship with my wife. We split at the end of my professional career because I pulled her every which way through Saturday and Sunday, right? And for me to expect a woman to stay, that had career aspirations of her own, to follow me around the world for 10 years and not see, a pot at the end of the rainbow, right? That's tough. So I lost my relationship. I got cut. I had adversity. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing, Deon, because when I go on television and there's a Jason Preston from Ohio University, and we can tell his story, and he's lighting up the University of Illinois for 31 points. Good thing Illinois won, but we got that story out to a national audience. Mm-hmm. That trended on Twitter. That story about Jason Preston. So the fact that I can follow up Kevin Kugler as he's setting up that story about this young man, I can say, I hope you guys heard that. And if you didn't, go back and get it, because you never know who's watching. Yes. You never know what situation that you can find yourself in. You just came out of a storm, you feeling bad, but for your grandmother and mother, Deon, taught you to square your shoulders off and walk proud. Mm-hmm. And the next opportunity could be the one that's the breakthrough. That's been my life every single time. I was critical of the University of Illinois' former athletic director. I went on Twitter and had a rant. It almost cost me my business opportunities with Big Ten Network and Fox. I almost lost everything because I went on a Twitter rant. But what happened, I got an opportunity with Yahoo Sports that my agent hooked up because he knew that I didn't have as much work as I had, before I went on the rant. I got severely cut, almost fired, but I started working with Yahoo Sports. That opened me up to what we're doing right now, this podcasting game, this digital game. Mm-hmm. And I'm ahead of the game, Deon, because of that adversity. So every bit of adversity I've had in sports, I can relate and I can turn back and be a lesson for somebody else so that they don't have to make the same mistake, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I love that. I love how you took, as my grandmother used to say, and this is a podcast, so I can say it. My grandmother used to say, you take shit and turn it to shinola.
There it is.
You take it and you turn it around and make it better for you. So that's one of the things, we're talking about adversity. You took a great trip this year with one of our former teammates, Andy Petty, where you went to Africa. I'm going to let you tell that story, because I thought it was amazing when I looked up and I saw you in Africa with Andy, talking to the coaches, working with the players. And we know how difficult it is. And as a coach, I knew how a lot of those kids were trying to come over here and get recruited. And a lot of those kids are really good and they just don't get seen. Can you tell us about that trip and what that experience meant for you?
Well, Deon, I'm a proud Black man. Always have been, always will be. I'm not anti anything, but I'm pro-Black. And so there was a few years ago when I started making an intention to go back to the motherland and try to figure out what my ancestry is. And so I was able to do that. But I was able to go to Ghana first, which is probably the easiest country for African Americans to go to because they speak English, right? So it's easy to assimilate and kind of get the feel of the continent through Ghana. So I went to Ghana. Again, here's the creator working. The guy that I do the Airbnb from, I'm renting out his place. His aunt was a former deputy finance minister for the country of Ghana.
Nice.
We go to her house, and in West Africa, there's a tradition that anytime you go to someone's house for the first time, you have to have a gift of some sort. She had a teenage son. I had one of my books, How to Make the League Without Picking Up the Rock, and I had a T-shirt. And I presented that as we came into this palatial place. She's got a gated compound, basically. And so she was pleased that I was following the ritual. And so we were visiting and talking, and she says, you need to go to Senegal. You need to go to Dakar, Senegal, because you'll see a lot of you there. So I left Ghana, didn't want to leave. Deon was in tears because I never felt like I felt when I was in Ghana. Mm-hmm. I didn't, people weren't looking at me weird. People weren't afraid of me. They weren't scared. They were like, hey, what's going on, man? Where are you from? Well, obviously you ain't from here, but wherever you're from, welcome. I'd never experienced that. I went to Dakar, Senegal, same exact thing. So when Andy Petty comes and says, hey man, I run these camps in Nigeria, he couldn't even get the sentence out, Deon. I said, I'm there. What I need to do, where I need to be. So, all right, we got it. We fly to Abuja, Nigeria, which is the capital of Nigeria. Nigeria is an amazing country, Deon. It is amazing. All the negative things you hear about Nigeria are pushed out there for a reason. Because statistically, in the United States, the most degreed group are Nigerians.
True.
Nigerians have more degrees than anybody in the United States. If we look at the NBA draft, the draft that just took place, there were 9 players of Nigerian descent in the top 33 picks. So the game of basketball has been infiltrated by Nigerians for years. We just don't pay attention to it. We don't put a spotlight on it. But when I went to Nigeria and I work with these kids, we work with young kids and we work with college-age kids. To a player, Deon, they are dying for someone to come over there and show them how to work, to show them fundamentals, to show them that they care about them. These kids are amazing because they don't have much. They're not walking around like our kids in the United States. They need opportunity. That's it. They work. Yes, sir. No, sir. I mean, it's amazing. It's refreshing. I cried at the airport. I did not want to come back home because I've never worked with a group of young people who work so hard, that wanted so desperately just to please me, because I took the time to come from the United States to come over there and work with them. And I'm like, y'all are giving me the gift. I'm not giving you the gift. I'm getting the gift from you. And so Andy Petty knew how I would respond. And so now, if anybody says anything about going back to the continent, I'm there. I don't care. And I'll let you know that a lot of people don't know. I'll be doing color analyst work for Basketball Africa League coming up pretty soon. Whenever they resume, once they can get the health protocols together, I'll be doing games for Basketball Africa League.
Oh man, congratulations on that. That's big time. And you know, your story you were telling me takes me back to a story when I was playing in Las Palmas, Spain.
Yep.
And I'm walking down the street, and there was a guy. He's in his full dashiki garb, and he stops me. He was like, "Where are you from?" Mm-hmm. And I was like, "I'm from Chicago." He was like, "No. Where are you from?
Where are your people from?" That's
right.
I
say, "Well, I know where you're going now. I can't trace, my family past Mississippi. I don't know." He was like, "You're from Nigeria. Like, you need to go to Nigeria because same as she said to you, you're gonna see a lot of people walking around that look like you."
Yep.
And I was like, okay. And then I found out I had to take, at that time it was 11 shots, and I was like, I don't like needles, so I was like, I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah. But it's on my bucket list, man. I truly am looking forward to taking that trip and learning those lessons that you did and being able to see the people. And Andy and I, last summer, we talked about maybe going this year, but of course, with everything that's going on, I don't think that's going to happen. So I hope he keeps me in his thoughts on going, because that sounds like an amazing trip. And like, you helped a lot of people, but you took a lot from it as well. So.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And let me tell you this, you only need one shot now. It's not 11.
Even better. See, I can do one.
You just need a yellow fever vaccination one time, and that's it. Now, and then you can go. So, right. Yeah.
One I can do. I can do one. I'm all right with one. But when I'm in there and with my team doctor, and that was actually a short trip from Las Palmas. I mean, because it's right off Las Palmas. The Canary Islands are located right off the west coast of Africa. It was like an hour and a half flight. Mm-hmm. And I was like, 11? I'm like, I can't do that. So one, I can do one. No arguments whatsoever. So you've done a lot, not just from the basketball standpoint, now with the broadcasting. I want to talk a little bit about your recent venture is Bardo's Breakdown. I'm a fan, I'm a subscriber, and whoever is out there listening, if you're not a subscriber, get your butt on it, because It's the bomb. And no, it's not just Illinois basketball. Steve covers everything from the NBA and every angle of college basketball. He even had some high school talks on there a couple of times. So get your telephone there and subscribe to Bardo's Breakdown. Tell us a little bit about how that baby came into existence.
Well, it really started around that Yahoo sports experience, because I worked with them for 5 or 6 years during covering March Madness. And what happened is I've got a business partner that we did America Love Food and Sports. So I've got a food show.
Which I love, by the way.
Season as well. That's done very, very well. And my business partner is younger. He just turned 40. But he's been a very successful businessman on the social media and digital space. And he kept saying, Stephen, nobody in your field is doing this. If you start now, you will be way ahead of the game. And as this starts to come about, you will be able to monetize this. So I started doing it. I would hold my phone and I'd have a white wall. And then Tom Wyrot, the sports information director at Michigan, who used to watch me early, he said, Stephen, you need a backdrop. I'm like, oh, wow. So I go online, I look it up, I get a backdrop. And then, I started getting college coaches on there. And I started getting different people on there, Deon, that I didn't expect to watch me on digital. Mm-hmm. But what happens is that when I started it and it started getting bigger and bigger, the people who were traditional, older people, I'd say 45 and up, who are TV babies, they're like, why does this dude get paid on TV, but he comes on digital and does this for free? Why is that? So there was a little bit of curiosity. But I knew all along that this is the way that things are going. And all the COVID-19 did was accelerate this. Yeah. Now everybody has to be Zoom linguistic, right? You have to be able to have these meetings and conduct meetings and podcasts and things like that, because if you don't, it's very hard to do anything right now.
True.
So if anybody that's been doing digital work for a while, we have an advantage at this point, because we're going to have some normalcy, return to our lives, but this stuff isn't going away. It's only going to get bigger.
Agreed.
Right? We're able to call games now. Big Ten Network, Fox Sports 1, ESPN. We're able to call live games from studio now.
Yep.
Right? Because everything's going digital. So I was very fortunate. Once again, the creator shining down on me. I've got the adversity when I'm dogging out the former Illinois athletic director. Really just went in bad. And there's a whole nother story that started it that I'll share with you off air. But that led to that Yahoo opportunity. And then me being a student, I'm looking around like, wow, they're paying me this much for a month to cover college basketball. They're paying me more than the television side would pay me in the same duration of time. Wait a minute, there's something I'm missing here. So I kept working with Yahoo. I kept learning every time I'd work with them. I learned something. I put it back in the Bardo's Breakdown, learned something. And then when the pandemic hit and we couldn't do anything, I said, I'm going hard. I'm going all in on this. And this is the result.
Well, I tell you, I'm a fan. I love it. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance most of the time to catch you when you live, because like you said, I'm in a lot of those Zoom meetings.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes when you go home. So,
right.
But I normally catch it afterwards, and I've truly enjoyed it. I think you are lights out. So I got one last thing for you. You and I both graduated from the University of Illinois. Our degrees, in my opinion, as I mentioned to you earlier, I think are second to none in this country, outside of maybe the Ivy Leagues, where you build up that base. But our base of Illini supporters, fans, and just people that are an alum is amazing to me. How has your time at Illinois as an athlete, your time there as a student, and of course, graduating from there, how has that been? How has it helped you in your life afterwards?
Deon, I really say, outside of choosing the mother of my children, it was probably the best decision I've ever made. And the reason I say that is because you talk about the Ivy Leagues and all that, right? But the Ivy Leagues don't have the second largest alumni association in the world. True. University of Illinois does. I don't know that the alumni or a lot of Ivy League schools have Mr. Khan, who owns a professional sports franchise, or Mark Andreessen of Horowitz Andreessen, which is the largest venture capital firm in the world, or one of the tops in the world. There are not a lot of schools that can compare to the success of the alumni of University of Illinois, and the reach. The reach is incredible. I tell this story all the time. People still don't believe me, but I'm gonna share it with you because it's quick. I'm playing in Barcelona, Spain. I'm walking down the street with my son, my wife at the time, who was also an Illinois grad. I met my ex-wife at University of Illinois. We're walking down the street and somebody says, Bardo. And I said, Leslie, don't turn around because they're not talking about us. We kept walking. He said, Flyin Illini. And we stopped dead in our tracks. And it was this guy from Victoria, Spain, out west towards Portugal. Not even in Barcelona. You know what I'm talking about, Deon?
Oh, yes.
And so he was from Victoria, Spain, but he was a crazy college basketball fan. He remembered the Flyin Illini team. Fast forward to Tokyo, Japan. We're walking around in Tokyo. And when the Japanese say your name, they'll say Thomas-san, Bardo-san. That's like Mr. Bardo, Mr. Thomas. So we walking. Somebody says Bardo-san. I don't stop walking because I'm like, they're not talking about me. And this guy in broken English, Flyin Illini. This Japanese guy he couldn't really speak English. But sports, talking about Flyin Illini, we connected on a conversation. I still have that picture with this guy today. So my point being, I could have gone to Purdue. I could have gone to Indiana. I could have gone to Ohio State. I wouldn't have been stopped in Barcelona and Tokyo, Japan. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to call Dennis Swanson, arguably the most influential sports media executive in the country. He paved my way. I wouldn't be on national television if it wasn't for Dennis Swanson. He paved my way. He put me on CBS2 Chicago with no experience. This is a destination market. This is one of the top markets in the country. He put a former basketball player in a sports reporting role. He let a guy go that had been working in the market for a decade. He'd been working all his life for this opportunity. He let him go and put me in Chicago. I was terrible, Deon, but he saw something in me. But that's the University of Illinois connection. Yeah. So when ladies and gentlemen, when Deon and I say that, we're not soft shoeing for the University of Illinois. We're speaking facts.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today. I'm good at it. I work at it. But there's 1,000, 10,000 other guys that could be in my position very easily. They didn't have Dennis Swanson. I did because of the University of Illinois. That's how important that decision was for me.
Well, I agree with you 100%. As I said, it changed my life. And like you, Dennis was the reason I moved over into broadcasting.
Yes.
Gave me a ton of tips, once I joined BTN and has walked me through this business ever since. So I agree with you 100%. You are exactly right about the reach of the University of Illinois, our fan base, our supporters, and our alum. I don't think they're any greater in the world.
I agree.
And I share a similar story to you. I was walking down La Rambla in Barcelona.
Spain.
Yep. And so I'm walking down and I hear somebody yell out, Thomas. And I'm like, you know me, I turn around. This dude had on, well, he didn't have on. He's just dressed regular in basketball garb. He's coming over. We're talking. He was a University of Illinois alum. He had gone to Illinois and then after he graduated, went back home to Spain. And so we sat there talking. He was actually there during my time. And so we're talking and I'm like, what are the chances of this happening? You're right. We are far reaching. So, but I'm going to say this, big fella, I appreciate you. I've learned a lot, as I always do when I'm around you and I seem to have you on. So I thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with a lot of the stories that you shared with us, and shared with Illini Nation. And I appreciate you. There's one last thing you want to say to Illini Nation before we sign off?
Enjoy this season because they have
Oh,
a
no,
special
that's right. I'm
team.
sorry. That's
Go
what
ahead.
I wanted to talk about. Let's do a little Illini basketball talk before I let you go. I know I'm running long, and I know I don't want to take up all your
All
time.
right. It's all
Just
right.
a little bit about what you have seen so far and what has you excited about Illinois this year.
Obviously, it's a talented team, Deon, but the thing that surprised me the most, they're in mid-season condition right now.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 games that I covered for them, you did not see one player bend over and grab their shorts at the free throw line. That was a given at the beginning of the seasons, right, Deon? Am I right?
Oh, yeah. No
Because you had
doubt.
to get in a certain kind of shape before you were in in-season shape, right?
Exactly.
These guys are in in-season shape right now. So, Illini fans, enjoy these special teams because you can see they don't come all the time. Older Illini fans got spoiled because, Deon, we were at the tail end of an amazing run.
Yes.
Of NCAA tournaments, of competing for Big Ten championships, of having players go to the NBA on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. We were on the back end of an amazing Illini run, like 20 years. And it's made Illinois the number 11 program in the nation. Yep. Not Big Ten, the nation. So Illini fans, I want you to understand how special Ayo Dosunmu is, how special Kofi Cockburn is, how very special Georgie Bashanishvili is. You would not see another college player make the sacrifices that Georgie Bashanishvili has after the freshman year that he has and continue to smile and continue to lead. That's unprecedented. This is an incredibly special group for so many different reasons. So that's what I want to impart on Illini fans, is that enjoy every bit of this. Look at every bit of practice film. Look at every interview and remember this team because they have a chance to win a national championship, right? They have a chance. I said this from day one. They have a chance to win a national championship. This is a special, special group. So enjoy it.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. And watching them, because I was of course covering it on the radio, looking at this team, and I've told people they have the chance to be possibly the best Illini team ever. And
I agree.
I am Flyin Illini biased,
yep.
But they have an opportunity to be the best ever. We haven't had this size, this depth, this length, and to have the Kofi Cockburn, we've never had one of those. To have someone like Ayo Dosunmu and watch his game get elevated year in and year out is absolutely amazing. Then you talk about Georgie. Love Georgie. I think everything he does is for the team, which is amazing, especially in today's young people that like to think about themselves and what their careers could be afterwards. This young man has said, nope, this is what I'm concentrating on now. Right. And then to see, let's talk about Andres Feliz last year, and to come into this year with Adam Miller and with Andre Cabello, these two young fellas are off the chain. I mean, I watched Miller, of course, in high school, but to watch how he's come out in the maturity of his game as a freshman, one, I have to take my hat off to Underwood and the staff. I have to take my hat off to Ayo Dosunmu and his leadership and how he has totally grabbed these young people and say, hey, this is the Illinois way. And to watch them in these first 3 games, okay, the 28 points, I'm happy he broke the freshman scoring record. That's not always going to be the same night. But to watch his poise, even when he didn't shoot the ball as well as he did that first night, talk a little bit about what you're seeing from those freshmen, because I went out on a limb in one of my texts and one of my Twitters, and I know my tweets, and I know we follow each other. And I told Illini Nation, you could very well be looking at the freshman of the year in the Big Ten.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I haven't seen a freshman in the Big Ten better than him, and I actually have not seen one yet to make that impact even on a national level.
Yeah, Adam Miller is special. If you look at his body, he's Big Ten ready already. Like, he looks like he's played in the conference a few years. His body is tremendous. He hasn't really shown his off the handle, off the bounce stuff. He can create. Yep. That's not going to be his majority role this year. His role is to space the floor, attack when you have the opportunity, and be solid defensively. Just don't make mistakes on the defensive end. So he's got not a limited role, but it's not as expansive as it will be when Io leaves, right? But the fact that he's left-handed, the fact that he's got that jumper is money from deep. That was the only thing that the Illini didn't do very well last year, was consistently space the floor.
Yep.
But now you got DeMonte Williams with his confidence as high as it's ever been. Trent Frazier has shown that he can be a 40% three-point shooter.
Yep.
And now you put Adam Miller in the mix with that,
and
you're able to space
Granderson and Austin are also two amazing shooters.
So I think Adam Miller and Andre Corbello, I loved watching Andre Corbello because he reminds me a little bit of Larry Smith in this. Larry would do things his freshman year that he was able to do in high school. But when you get to the next level, they're stronger, they're faster. So some of that stuff you can't do. And so you saw Corbello, he would get too deep on the penetration sometimes, and he'd get hit on his arm, and the refs wouldn't call it, and they'd be going the other way. And he had a few turnovers like that. And I just had the most warm smile for this young man because he's going to be a killer.
Yes,
you can see it. He's going to wear people out. He's got to get stronger. He's got to learn what he can and can't do. But he's a wizard with the rock. He made one move in the Ohio game, Deon, that was key, that nobody really talked about. He came hard right. He got into the lane. He hit a step back hard. Like, a lot of times people will step back with their left into a right-hand jumper. That's easy. He was coming right, step back, right into a jumper, fade back, hit nothing but cotton. I said, if that young man can do that, the Big Ten is going to be in trouble. He may not be able to do it consistently this year, but watch what I'm telling you. That backcourt of Miller and Corbello, that's a special group. Those two are special.
I agree with you, big fella. And thank you. I appreciate you sharing your insight. Like I said before, appreciate you sharing your story. So Illini Nation, as I said before, make sure you go and you follow Bardo's breakdown. Subscribe, watch him. Of course, he takes all of that knowledge from, you heard this career. He's already had a career long for broadcasters, and he's taking it and he's pouring it into what he's doing on Bardo's breakdown. So make sure you go out and you follow him, subscribe, and also make sure you go on and you follow and subscribe Champaign on Ice. You can find it on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. And then, of course, keep up with it on social media, Champaign on Ice on Twitter, as well as Champaign on Ice on Instagram. So, Steve, appreciate you, big fella. Nothing but love. We're going to sign off. Thank you.
Thank you, Deon. Appreciate it.